The night of our 5th wedding anniversary was supposed to be perfect. I had planned a surprise dinner at our favorite restaurant, a place we'd celebrated many milestones in our relationship. Emma had been excited when I told her about the reservation, and her smile was the highlight of my day. When I got home from work, I found Emma in the kitchen, humming as she prepared a meal. "Hey, beautiful," I greeted, wrapping my arms around her waist. She turned and kissed me. "Hey, I'm so excited for tonight. Did you manage to get everything done at work?" "Just about," I said, noting the light in her eyes. "But tonight is all about us." Emma beamed. "I can't wait. I've been looking forward to this." We finished preparing for the evening together, and as we got ready, Emma seemed particularly cheerful, which was unusual for her. She had been more distracted lately, but I brushed it off as stress from work. After all, the anniversary was supposed to be a celebration of our love and commitment. When we arrived at the restaurant, the table was beautifully set, with candles flickering and soft music playing in the background. Emma looked stunning in her new dress, and as I watched her, I felt a wave of gratitude and affection. "This place looks amazing," Emma said, taking in the atmosphere. "I'm so glad you picked it. I knew you'd love it," I said, holding out her chair for her. As the evening went on, we enjoyed a delicious meal and exchanged gifts. Emma gave me a lovely watch, something I had been eyeing for a while. I felt a pang of guilt, realizing I hadn't been as attentive lately. "I've been meaning to ask," I said, trying to steer the conversation towards something lighter. "How's the Animal Lovers Club going? I remember you were excited about it." Emma's smile faltered slightly before she replied, It's good. Busy, though. We've been planning a lot of events." I noticed her hesitation but chose not to press further. Instead, we continued enjoying our evening. But a small part of me couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't quite right. The next morning, I was getting ready for work when I noticed Emma's phone on the kitchen counter. It buzzed with a message from an unfamiliar number. Normally, I wouldn't have thought twice about it, but the timing of Emma's recent behavior made me pause. I picked up the phone, hesitating before unlocking it with the code I knew. The message was from someone named Alex and was filled with playful, flirtatious banter. My heart sank as I read through the exchange. The text read, "Hey, can't wait to see you tonight. Miss you." I felt a mix of anger and confusion. Emma had never mentioned an Alex before, and the tone of the messages was intimate and suggestive. I knew I had to confront her, but I wasn't sure how to approach the topic. When Emma came into the kitchen, I tried to act normal. "Morning," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Good morning," she replied, her tone upbeat. "Did you sleep well?" "I did, thanks," I said, glancing at her. "I saw a message on your phone this morning." "Who's Alex?" Emma's face turned pale. "Alex? Oh, he's a new colleague from the Animal Lovers Club." "Really?" I said, raising an eyebrow. Because the messages seemed personal. She looked down, clearly caught off guard. "It's not what you think. Alex and I have been working on a project together." "The messages." "Emma," I interrupted, "we need to talk about this. I'm not comfortable with what I saw." She sighed, her shoulders slumping. "Jake, I should have told you. There's more to this than you know." After Emma's confession about Alex, we sat down at the dining table, the room feeling suddenly too small. The weight of her admission was heavy in the air, and I struggled to process it. "Emma, I need to understand," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "What's going on between you and Alex?" Emma took a deep breath. "Alex and I have been seeing each other. It started out as just a friendship, but it turned into something more." My heart raced, and I felt a rush of emotions. "So, you've been cheating on me?" She nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "Yes. I'm so sorry, Jake. It was a mistake. I never meant to hurt you." I ran a hand through my hair, trying to control the storm of feelings inside me. "How long has this been going on?" "About 6 months," Emma admitted, her voice trembling. "It started after I joined the Animal Lovers Club. I didn't realize how deep my feelings for Alex would become. I should have ended it before it got this far." I stood up, pacing the room. 6 months? Emma, that's a significant part of our marriage. How could you keep this from me?" "I was afraid," she said, her voice breaking. "I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't want to hurt you, but now I see that keeping it a secret only made things worse." I looked at her, feeling a mix of anger and sorrow. "What do you want from me now? What happens next?" Emma reached out for my hand, but I pulled away. "I want to make it right. I want to be honest with you and try to work through this." But I understand if you need time or if you can't forgive me. I took a deep breath, my mind racing. The betrayal was overwhelming, and I needed to take a step back to process everything. I don't know if I can forgive you right now, Emma. I need to think about what's best for both of us. Emma nodded, tears streaming down her face. I understand. Take all the time you need. I'm so sorry, Jake. The room was filled with silence as the weight of Emma's betrayal hung heavily between us. I knew that moving forward would be a difficult journey, but the first step was to confront the reality of what had happened and decide how to handle the fallout. I drove aimlessly for what felt like hours, the streets of our town blurring into a mesh of gray asphalt and dull buildings. My mind was numb, but every so often, a sharp thought would pierce through. A few months of lies. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, knuckles white, as the words echoed in my head. She had admitted it. Emma had been cheating on me for months with Alex. And I had been too blind, too trusting, to see it. How had I let it get this far? How had I missed the signs? Every late night at work, every weekend meeting, every time she had turned away from me in bed, claiming she was too tired. I should have known. I should have confronted her sooner. Instead, I had let the lies pile up until they buried me. I finally pulled into an empty parking lot and killed the engine. The silence inside the car was oppressive, a reflection of the emptiness I felt inside. I leaned back in my seat, staring up at the darkening sky, wondering how everything had unraveled so quickly. Just days ago, we had been celebrating our 5th anniversary. We had toasted to our future, talked about our plans, our dreams. How could she have stood there, smiling at me, while secretly sharing her life with someone else? I clenched my jaw, trying to control the flood of emotions. Anger, sadness, betrayal. They all crashed together, leaving me exhausted and broken. I didn't know what to do next. Confronting Emma hadn't made me feel any better. If anything, it had only opened up a new wound. But I couldn't stay here forever. Eventually, I had to go home and face her again. By the time I pulled into the driveway, the house was dark. Emma's car was in the garage, but she hadn't left the porch light on. I hesitated at the front door, unsure of what I was walking into. Would she still be crying? Would she try to apologize again, explain herself? I stepped inside, and the silence hit me. The house felt cold, lifeless. I found her sitting at the kitchen table, staring blankly at her phone, the same phone that had been the source of all this pain. She looked up when she heard me enter, her eyes red and swollen. Jake, she started, her voice hoarse. I cut her off, too tired to listen to her excuses. I don't want to hear it right now. She blinked, looking down at her hands, her fingers fidgeting with the edge of her phone case. The weight of everything hung between us, thick and suffocating. Neither of us knew what to say, so we just sat there, trapped in a silence that felt as though it could last forever. The next few days passed in a haze. Emma and I barely spoke. She slept in the guest room, and I took the couch, though I hardly got any rest. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her with him, Alex, the man who had come between us, the man who had ruined everything. I couldn't get him out of my mind. It wasn't just Emma I was furious with, it was him. The thought of them together, laughing, touching, sharing things that should have been only mine, it burned inside me, turning my anger into something more dangerous. I couldn't let them get away with this. They needed to pay for what they had done. One night, as I lay on the couch, staring at the ceiling, an idea began to form. It started as a small spark, but the more I thought about it, the more it grew into something bigger, something more satisfying. Emma and Alex had humiliated me, made a fool out of me. So why shouldn't I do the same to them? Why shouldn't they feel the same humiliation, the same betrayal, that I had felt? I knew Alex was married. Emma had mentioned his wife once or twice in passing. Her name was Hannah, I think. She worked in marketing, traveled a lot for work, which was probably why she had no idea what her husband was doing behind her back. But I could change that. I could bring her into this, make her aware of the lies she was living in, just like I had been. The plan began to take shape in my mind, and for the first time since this nightmare had started, I felt a sense of control. I would expose them, ruin what they had built, just like they had ruined what Emma and I had. The next day, while Emma was at work, I searched for Hannah's contact information online. It didn't take long to find her on social media, and through a little more digging, I found her email address. My heart pounded as I typed out the message. I kept it simple, direct. No need for pleasantries. Hi, Hannah. I'm Jake, Emma's husband. I'm reaching out because I thought you should know that your husband, Alex, has been having an affair with my wife for the past few months. I have proof if you need it. I attached a few screenshots of the messages I had found between Emma and Alex. Just enough to prove my point, but not too much to overwhelm her. Then, without giving myself a chance to second guess it, I hit send. There was no going back now. It didn't take long for Hannah to respond. I had expected it to take days, maybe weeks for her to process the information, but instead, she replied within an hour. Her message was short, curt, clearly written in a state of shock. Can we meet? I need to know everything. The urgency in her words was palpable, and for a moment, I felt a pang of guilt. I was about to destroy her life, just as mine had been destroyed. But then I remembered, this wasn't my doing. This was Alex and Emma's fault. They had caused this mess, and now they were going to face the consequences. We arranged to meet at a small coffee shop just outside of town. I arrived early, feeling a mix of anticipation and dread. I didn't know what to expect, what kind of person Hannah was, how she would react. Part of me wondered if she would even show up. But she did, right on time. Hannah was tall, with dark brown hair pulled back in a tight ponytail. She wore a simple black coat and looked around the cafe with sharp, calculating eyes. She spotted me almost immediately and walked over with a determined stride. "Jake?" she asked, her voice steady but tense. I nodded and stood to shake her hand. Her grip was firm, almost too firm, as though she was trying to hold herself together through sheer willpower. We sat down, and for a few moments, neither of us spoke. I could see the strain in her face, the effort it took to keep her emotions in check. Finally, she broke the silence. "How long has this been going on?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "A few months," I replied, feeling a lump form in my throat. "Since at least March, maybe longer." She nodded, her lips pressing into a thin line. "I had a feeling," she admitted, her voice cracking just a little. "He's been distant, different." But I didn't want to believe it. I felt a surge of sympathy for her. We were in the same boat, both blindsided by the people we thought we knew best. "I'm sorry," I said, not knowing what else to say. Hannah looked up at me, her eyes hardening. "Don't be. They did this to us, not the other way around." She was right. We hadn't asked for this. We were just the collateral damage. As we sat there, talking through the details, a strange sense of camaraderie began to form between us. We were strangers, but in this shared betrayal, we found common ground. And as the conversation continued, it became clear, we weren't just going to sit back and let Alex and Emma get away with this. We were going to make them pay. The next few days were a whirlwind of frantic planning and strategic conversations. Hannah and I kept in touch, exchanging information and coordinating our next steps. We decided that the best way to hit Alex and Emma where it hurt the most was to make their affair public. The plan was to expose them at the office party, a grand event where both Alex and Emma would be present. It would be the perfect opportunity to humiliate them in front of their colleagues. Hannah and I kept our interactions discreet, communicating mainly through text and occasional phone calls. We needed to make sure that Alex and Emma had no clue about our plans. Hannah was a master at navigating the social circles at Alex's office and had access to insider information about the upcoming party, which proved invaluable. I spent hours gathering all the evidence I had, screenshots of messages, photos from the dates they had taken together, and any other incriminating material. I meticulously organized everything, ensuring I had a clear timeline of their affair. This was crucial. I needed to present a coherent, undeniable case when the time came. Meanwhile, Hannah did her part. She managed to obtain an invitation for the party under the guise of a business associate. Her presence there would give her the chance to coordinate with me and ensure everything went smoothly. We planned to use the most appropriate moment to reveal the evidence, ensuring maximum impact. As the day of the party approached, I felt a strange mix of anticipation and dread. Part of me was excited at the thought of finally confronting them, but another part was anxious about the possible fallout. This was a drastic measure, and I knew it would change everything. When the day arrived, I prepared myself for the confrontation. I put on my best suit, the one I had worn just days earlier for our anniversary. It felt surreal to be wearing it again, under such different circumstances. I took a deep breath, mentally bracing myself for what was about to unfold. The office party was in full swing when I arrived, The large conference room decorated with shimmering lights and elegant decorations. Music played softly in the background, and clusters of people mingled, drinks in hand, laughter punctuating the air. I scanned the room, searching for Hannah, who had assured me she would be there early to help with the setup. I spotted her near the bar, chatting with a group of people. She caught my eye and gave a subtle nod. I walked over, and we exchanged brief pleasantries before getting down to business. Hannah had positioned herself strategically, ensuring she would be able to draw attention to the moment we decided to reveal the evidence. The plan was to wait for the right moment, a lull in the festivities when everyone's attention would be focused on us. Hannah and I had agreed on a signal. When she saw that the time was right, she would give me a discreet sign, and I would take over from there. As the evening progressed, the room grew noisier, and people began to gather in clusters. I kept a close eye on Alex and Emma, who were mingling with their colleagues, seemingly unaware of the storm that was about to hit. Emma was laughing at something Alex said, her hand resting on his arm in a way that made my blood boil. I felt a surge of determination. They had chosen to flaunt their betrayal, and it was time to make them face the consequences. Hannah gave me the signal, a quick glance and a nod, and I knew it was time to act. I moved towards the center of the room, my heart pounding. Hannah followed, and together we made our way to the front, where a projector had been set up for a slideshow. People were starting to gather, sensing something was about to happen. The room fell into a hush as I approached the microphone. The sudden silence was palpable, and all eyes turned to me. I could see Emma and Alex at the edge of the crowd, their faces slowly shifting from curiosity to confusion as they realized something was wrong. I cleared my throat and began speaking, trying to keep my voice steady. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the interruption, but I have something important to share. A murmur ran through the crowd, and I could see Emma's face turn pale. Alex's expression hardened as he realized where this was going. I gestured to the projector, and the screen flickered to life, displaying the first of the incriminating messages. The reactions were immediate. Gasps and whispers spread through the crowd as the messages appeared on the screen, each one a stark reminder of the betrayal I had endured. I scrolled through the conversation, showcasing the most damning evidence, flirty texts, plans to meet, and intimate photos that left nothing to the imagination. Emma and Alex tried to speak up, but their voices were drowned out by the rising din of shocked colleagues. The room buzzed with confusion, disbelief, and anger. People started taking out their phones, capturing the evidence and sharing it across social media. The humiliation was intense. Emma's eyes were filled with tears, and Alex's face was a mask of fury and shame. I could see the impact of my actions, the way they were reeling from the exposure. This was what I had wanted, to make them feel the same pain and disgrace that I had experienced. As the evidence continued to roll on the screen, I stepped back, letting the room's reactions wash over me. The affair was out in the open, and there was no turning back now. I had achieved what I set out to do, but the sense of satisfaction was bittersweet. The betrayal had left scars that no amount of public shaming could heal. The party descended into chaos, with people scrambling to process what had just happened. I watched as Emma and Alex were cornered by their colleagues, their private lives laid bare for everyone to see. For the first time in days, I felt a sense of closure, though it was tainted by the knowledge that the pain and damage done would not easily be forgotten. The morning after the office party was anything but peaceful. I had hardly slept, and when I did, it was fitfully, plagued by dreams of the chaotic scene from the previous night. The images of Emma and Alex, humiliated and exposed, replayed in my mind like a broken record. The fallout from the public shaming was inevitable, and I knew I had to face it. I arrived at the office. The place that had once been a refuge now felt like a battlefield. As I walked through the corridors, the whispers started. Colleagues who had witnessed the scene at the party exchanged glances, their eyes filled with pity or curiosity. "Hey, Jake," said one of my coworkers, Tom, as he approached. "That was something last night. I'm sorry you had to go through that." I managed a tight smile. "Thanks, Tom. It's been a rough few days." Tom nodded sympathetically and walked away, leaving me to face the lingering tension alone. I took a deep breath and headed towards my office, determined to focus on work despite the chaos swirling in my mind. As I sat at my desk, my phone buzzed with a message. It was from Hannah. "Can we meet? I need to talk about last night." I texted back quickly. "Sure, Let's meet at the cafe at noon. The cafe was quiet when I arrived, a stark contrast to the previous night's frenzy. Hannah was already there, sitting at our usual table. She looked tired, her eyes red from lack of sleep. "Hey," I said, sitting down across from her. "How are you holding up?" Hannah sighed, her expression one of frustration and weariness. "It's been a nightmare. Alex is furious. He's blaming me for everything, saying I'm the one who caused the mess." I raised an eyebrow. "Really? That's rich. It was his affair, not yours." "I know," she replied, her voice tinged with bitterness. "But he's deflecting. He's angry and trying to find someone to blame other than himself. And to make matters worse, my boss is calling me in for a meeting today. She wants to discuss my unprofessional behavior at the party." I frowned. "That's not fair. You were just exposing the truth." Hannah nodded, her gaze distant. "I know, but it's hard to explain that to people who only saw a snippet of what happened. I'm worried about my job." I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "We'll get through this. The truth is out there, and that's what matters. Maybe the fallout will be tough, but it's nothing compared to the lies we've been living." Hannah managed a small smile, though it didn't reach her eyes. "You're right. It's just going to take some time to sort everything out." We spent the rest of the meeting discussing our next steps. Hannah agreed to meet with her boss and try to clear things up, and I decided it was time to face Emma and Alex directly. The public exposure had been the first step. Now, I needed to address the personal aftermath. Later that day, I drove to Emma's apartment. She had moved out temporarily, taking refuge in a small rental she'd arranged in a panic. I had called her earlier, asking if we could talk. Her response was hesitant but accepting. As I pulled up to the building, I took a deep breath, mentally preparing myself for the confrontation. Emma answered the door, looking disheveled and tired. Her eyes were red-rimmed, a stark contrast to the vibrant woman I had known. She stepped aside, allowing me to enter. "Jake," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't expect you to come here." "I had to," I replied, stepping into the small, sparsely furnished living room. "We need to talk about everything." Emma nodded, her gaze dropping to the floor. "I know. I'm so sorry for what happened. I never meant for any of this." I shook my head, my anger rising again. "Sorry doesn't change what you did, Emma. You lied to me, betrayed my trust, and humiliated both of us." She flinched at my words, her eyes filling with tears. "I know. I was stupid and selfish. I thought I could keep it all under control. That it wouldn't hurt anyone. I never meant for things to get so out of hand." I folded my arms across my chest, trying to contain the storm of emotions inside me. "How could you think that? How could you think it was okay to do this?" Emma wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "I didn't think. I was caught up in the excitement and attention. Alex made me feel special, made me feel like I was wanted. I didn't realize how wrong it was until it was too late." "Too late?" I echoed, the bitterness in my voice unmistakable. "You've been lying to me for months. And now, it's all come crashing down. I exposed everything at the party, and you and Alex are facing the consequences of your actions." Emma looked down, her shoulders shaking slightly as she sobbed. "I'm so sorry, Jake. I never wanted this. I don't know how to make it right." I sighed, feeling a mix of pity and frustration. "I don't think you can make it right. Not anymore. The damage is done." There was a long silence as we both processed the weight of what had happened. Emma's tears and my anger were intertwined in a painful knot. The reality of our shattered relationship was sinking in, and it was clear that moving forward would be far from easy. In the days following the confrontation with Emma, the weight of the situation began to settle heavily on me. I had made the decision to expose the affair, but now, with the immediate aftermath over, I had to decide what came next. My interactions with Hannah had left me feeling more connected to someone who shared my pain. But I needed to focus on my own path forward. One evening, I found myself at a local diner, nursing a cup of coffee and staring out the window, lost in thought. My phone buzzed, and I glanced at the screen. It was a message from Hannah. "Can we meet? I need to talk about what's next." I replied quickly. "Sure, let's meet at the diner." When Hannah arrived, she looked as worn out as I felt. She slid into the booth across from me, her expression serious. "Thanks for meeting me." "No problem," I said, pushing a cup of coffee towards her. "What's on your mind?" Hannah took a deep breath. "I've been thinking about everything that's happened. I know Alex and I have a lot to figure out, but I wanted to see where you stand." I nodded, understanding the complexity of her situation. I'm trying to figure things out too. The exposure was necessary, but now I'm left with the question of what to do next. Do I try to salvage what's left of my marriage or move on? Hannah sighed. I've been wrestling with the same questions. Alex is trying to make amends, but I'm not sure if I can forgive him. It's hard to trust someone who's broken your heart. I get that, I replied, my voice heavy with the weight of my own decisions. Emma has been trying to apologize, but I'm not sure if I can ever trust her again. The betrayal cuts deep. Hannah nodded sympathetically. It's a tough place to be. Do you have any idea what you want to do? I shook my head. Not really. I thought exposing them would give me closure, but it's only made things more complicated. I need to figure out if there's a path forward or if it's time to let go. Hannah looked thoughtful. Maybe it's time to focus on yourself. You've been through a lot, and you deserve to find some peace. Sometimes, moving on is the best way to heal. I considered her words, feeling a mix of relief and apprehension. Maybe you're right. I need to prioritize my own well-being and figure out what's best for me. We spent the rest of the evening discussing our futures, supporting each other as we faced our respective challenges. It was clear that both of us were at a crossroads, trying to navigate the aftermath of betrayal and decide what our next steps should be. As we left the diner, I felt a glimmer of hope amid the uncertainty. The road ahead was unclear, but with Hannah's support and a newfound resolve to focus on my own healing, I knew I could face whatever came next. Weeks had passed since the office party, and life had settled into a new, uneasy routine. The aftermath of the exposure had been turbulent. Emma and Alex's relationships with their colleagues had soured, and while some people had chosen to stay supportive, others had distanced themselves. For me, the reality of moving on was slowly becoming clearer, though the emotional residue of the betrayal still lingered. One afternoon, as I was going through some old photos while packing up Emma's belongings from the house, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Hannah. Can we talk? I need to discuss something important. I texted back immediately. Sure, what time? How about 3 p.m. at the park? I agreed and made my way to the park, the crisp autumn air providing a refreshing change from the chaos that had surrounded me. When I arrived, Hannah was already there, sitting on a bench with a thoughtful expression. I joined her, and we sat in silence for a few moments, taking in the peaceful surroundings. What's on your mind? I asked, breaking the silence. Hannah looked at me, her eyes serious. I've been thinking a lot about the future. About what's next for both of us. I nodded. Me too. It's been a strange adjustment. I'm still processing everything, trying to figure out where I fit in now. Hannah took a deep breath. I've decided to move forward with my life. I'm planning to leave my job and start fresh in a new city. I think it's the best way for me to heal. I was surprised. That's a big step. Are you sure you're ready for it? I think so, she said, her voice resolute. I need a new environment, a fresh start. It's hard to stay in the same place where all these painful memories are tied. I could understand her desire for change. I guess we both need to find our own paths. It's been a tough journey, but maybe this is the right time to reinvent ourselves. Hannah smiled faintly. Exactly. And what about you? Have you decided what you're going to do? I'm still figuring it out, I admitted. I'm focusing on myself right now, trying to rebuild. I've considered moving on, but I'm not quite ready to make any major decisions yet. Hannah nodded in understanding. That makes sense. It's important to take your time and do what feels right for you. We talked for a while longer, discussing our plans and reflecting on how far we had come. The conversation was comforting, a reminder that even in the midst of pain, there was still hope for a better future. As we parted ways, I felt a renewed sense of determination. Change was on the horizon, and while it was daunting, it also promised new possibilities. For the first time in weeks, I felt optimistic about what lay ahead. The day had come for Hannah to leave. She had packed up her things and was preparing to start her new life in a different city. I offered to help her with the move, and together we loaded up the last of her belongings into the moving truck. Despite the early hour, the sky was clear, and the sun was just beginning to rise, casting a golden hue over the world. As we finished loading the truck, Hannah turned to me, her expression a mixture of excitement and sadness. Thank you for helping with everything. It means a lot to me. I smiled, feeling a pang of sadness at the thought of losing her as a daily presence in my life. It's the least I could do. You've been a real friend through all this. We stood there for a moment, the weight of our shared experiences hanging between us. Hannah took a deep breath, her eyes reflecting the morning light. "I want you to know that I'm grateful for everything we went through together. It's been rough, but I think it's made us stronger." I feel the same way, I said. "It's been a challenging journey, but I'm glad we had each other's support." Hannah nodded, her gaze shifting to the moving truck. "Well, I guess this is it. Time to start a new chapter." "Yeah," I replied, feeling a mixture of hope and apprehension. "Good luck with everything. I hope you find the fresh start you're looking for." She gave me a warm smile and hugged me tightly. "Thank you, Jake. I hope you find peace and happiness too." As she climbed into the driver's seat and started the engine, I watched the truck pull away, feeling a sense of closure. The goodbye was bittersweet, but it marked the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. With Hannah gone and Emma's belongings packed away, the house felt oddly quiet. The echoes of past laughter and arguments seemed to linger, a reminder of the life that had once been. The silence was both comforting and unnerving, but it was clear that it was time for a new beginning. I spent the first few days organizing and rearranging, trying to reclaim some semblance of normalcy. Every corner of the house held memories, and as I sorted through Emma's things, I found myself reflecting on our relationship and what it had become. One afternoon, I sat on the porch with a cup of coffee, contemplating my next steps. My phone buzzed with a text message from an old friend, Matt, whom I hadn't seen in years. He was in town and wanted to catch up. I hesitated for a moment but decided it might be a good opportunity to reconnect and take my mind off things. "Hey, Jake, I'm in town for a few days and was wondering if we could meet up." "It's been ages," I replied quickly. "Hey, Matt, that sounds great. How about we meet for dinner tonight?" "Perfect. Let's meet at that new grill place downtown at 7 p.m. That evening, I arrived at the restaurant early, finding a table and ordering a drink while I waited for Matt. The place was lively, with a casual, relaxed atmosphere that felt like a welcome change from the tension of recent days. When Matt arrived, he looked just as I remembered, his easygoing demeanor and infectious smile instantly putting me at ease. "Jake, it's great to see you," he said, giving me a warm hug. "It's been too long." "Definitely," I agreed, smiling. "How've you been?" "Busy with work, but good. How about you? I heard you've been going through a tough time." I sighed, feeling the weight of recent events. "Yeah, it's been rough. My marriage fell apart, and I've been trying to figure out what comes next." Matt's expression shifted to one of concern. "I'm really sorry to hear that. If you want to talk about it, I'm here." We ordered our meals, and as we ate, I found myself opening up about everything that had happened. I told Matt about Emma's affair with Alex, the confrontation, and the steps I had taken to start moving forward. "It sounds like you've been through a lot," Matt said, nodding sympathetically. "I can't imagine how hard that must have been." "It was," I admitted. "And it still is. But I'm trying to focus on myself now. I've been organizing things, making changes, and trying to find a new direction." Matt leaned back in his chair, considering. "Sometimes, a fresh start can be exactly what you need. Maybe this is an opportunity for you to rediscover what you want and who you want to be." "I hope so," I said, feeling a flicker of hope. "I'm taking it one day at a time. It's just hard to see the way forward sometimes." Matt smiled encouragingly. "You're stronger than you think. It might not feel like it now, but you're moving in the right direction. And if you ever need support or someone to talk to, you've got friends who care." As the evening went on, our conversation shifted to lighter topics, old memories, shared interests, and plans for the future. The connection with Matt was a welcome distraction, and I left the restaurant feeling a bit lighter than when I had arrived. The next day, I decided to take a walk through the park. It was a place I used to visit frequently with Emma, but now it felt like a place for new beginnings. The crisp autumn air was refreshing, and the changing leaves seemed to symbolize the changes in my life. As I walked, I reflected on my conversation with Matt. The idea of starting over seemed daunting but also filled with possibilities. I began to think about what I wanted for my future, new hobbies, career goals, and perhaps even new relationships. My phone buzzed with a message from Hannah, who had reached out to let me know how her move had gone. She wanted to catch up and hear how things were going for me. "Hey, Jake, just wanted to let you know I've arrived safely and am settling in. How's everything with you?" I replied. "Hey, Hannah, glad to hear you're settling in. Things are going okay. It's a lot of change, but I'm managing. Let's catch up soon." Later that week, we arranged a video call. Hannah looked more relaxed in her new surroundings, and as we chatted, It was clear that both of us were beginning to find our footing in our new lives. "I'm glad to hear you're doing okay," Hannah said. "It's been a challenging time, but it sounds like you're making progress." "I am," I replied, feeling a sense of accomplishment. "It's still a work in progress, but I'm getting there." "How's the new city treating you?" "It's great so far," Hannah said, her eyes brightening. "The new job is promising, and I'm starting to explore the city. It's a big change, but I'm excited about it." We talked for a while longer, sharing updates and offering support. It was comforting to reconnect with someone who understood the challenges of the past few months. As the call ended, I felt a renewed sense of hope. The future was still uncertain, but I was learning to embrace the possibilities it held. Moving forward would be a journey, but with the support of friends and a determination to rebuild, I was ready to face whatever came next.